And welcome back. It's still Rapid Dawn, and at this point, we have to dive right into our conversation, talking about the paper headlines. In fact, the way I'm excited about the paper headlines this morning, just have to introduce my guest. Ladies and gentlemen, I have my guest with me, Faith. I did promise you that she'll be here every Friday, but today she's here on a Wednesday, and that's because it's a very serious matter. Did you invest in CBEX?
What is that?
Get rich quick.
Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't even know CBEX existed until it
Okay.
crashed. So I'm thankful for my circle of friends because obviously they're not interested in Ponzi schemes either. Because I mean, usually they succeed by talking to friends and neighbors and you know, spouses and church members or mosque members. I mean, that's how it spreads really. For Ponzi schemes, because they tell you to bring 5 people and then you grow your upline. See, once it gets to go and bring 5, go and bring 3.
You're not part of
I
that.
am not interested. I don't care what you're doing. I would never do it. So usually Ponzi schemes succeed because the people that come to tell people about it are people that are trusted. So your friend is telling you about it, your colleague is telling you about it, your spouse is telling you about it, your religious leader is telling you about it, and you think, oh my God, it's good. And then some of them actually cash out.
At
And they
the
come
early
and tell you,
stage.
and they show you, they tell you, you know, there's a lot of testimonies going on, like, hey, you know, people who do this thing, they recruit like they're carrying out evangelism for, it's what it is. But until 2 days ago, yesterday, actually yesterday morning, I didn't know CBEX existed.
One of the things
So-
about CBEX, about this particular scheme, is that a lot of people were keeping it under wraps because they felt like, oh, let's not share, let's just cash out a loan. Some people did cash out at the beginning. Of course, like every typical Ponzi scheme, some persons will cash out.
No, but
That's
that's the way you spread it, you know. So there are people who can share testimonials and say, "Oh my goodness, I was able to make this amount of money," you know. But at the end of the day, you realize that it doesn't last forever because it's a Ponzi scheme. So at some point, it's going to crash. The EFCC has put out a report saying that they're investigating this alongside Interpol. So basically, they're saying that where there is prosecution, where prosecution is required, there will be prosecution. And of course, if they can recover anything, they'll try and recover as well. SEC put out notice. Even the EFCC said they had 58 companies that they listed. The problem, though, is that people don't really know about these things like that. SEC also said that that's a Security and Exchange Commission. They said that they had issued warnings about this before, but I think it's time for regulators, because SEC is a regulator, but CBEX wasn't registered with SEC. It's time for them to not be reactive, but be more proactive where this is concerned. Like I said, once they're telling you to join the Telegram group and telling you to bring 5 people and telling you that they are going to double your money
And
in
giving
a
you,
month.
giving you a link.
In
40 days.
How do you believe that? There is no investment. I mean, first, they tell you that AI is trading for you. And I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords that are thrown around, you know, and it's a crypto platform. So a lot of people want to also show that they understand this thing. So they're joining and say, oh, AI is trading for us. AI is trading what? You know, and once you get that notice that you're going to double your money in a month, you should run away. There's no investment that exists like that in this world.
It's crazy. Let's now look at some of the big stories on our national day list this morning. Let's have that on the screen. Okay. All right. There seems to be some interesting stories there. How thousands of Nigerians lost 1.3 trillion to scam. I knew that was going to be there. Nigeria moving backwards under Tinubu, El-Rufai alleges. And we also have some interesting stories right there you want to look at. Citizens need financial education. This is coming from experts. And also, we have, let's have the next paper. There are desperate Nigerians lost over, lost so much to Ponzi schemes. And of course, it's been a lot in 9 years. 5 ways to spot a Ponzi scheme is right there on the screen, on the papers, you look at it. So So for those who need to be educated about that, 5 ways to spot a Ponzi scheme. 2027, Atiku PDP youth Bika on alliance as Makinde voices capacity. We also have IGP vows justice as Mufwang visits grieving Plateau communities. Nigerians dying due to Tinubu's incompetency. That is right there on the front page of The Guardian if you look at it. Rivers to recover 300 million naira from MBA threatens legal action. Ooh, it's getting worse. Inflation resumes upwards. Upward trend rises to 24.23% in March. And address pensive killings decisively, Kagama tells Tinubu. I'm sure you've seen something that's of interest to you.
Well, I mean, of course, the Ponzi scheme is big on every paper this morning. When I said it was about 1.3 trillion, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I think what is very interesting about Ponzi schemes, like I was saying earlier, is that there are some people who actually make money from it. And people sometimes borrow money to invest in it. Now, of course, you can link that part of the reasons why this happens is that, there's lack of financial literacy. That is a big deal. And then there is also the problem of people just wanting to make money really, really quick. That would never, ever cease to amaze me, because why do you think you can make this money like this? But then some people also pointed to economic hardship. I mean, you talked about inflation. It's been rebased, but it's still going up, if it wasn't rebased, it would probably be at almost 40% right now. But it has been rebased. It was rebased 2 months ago, and it is still going up. And part of the reason is just that there's so much economic hardship that people feel like they just need to get money from anywhere to try to hedge against the inflation. And then you also see interest rates climbing up and things like, so people are trying to hedge against that. So there are enough reasons to give why this happens. But you also look at this issue of insecurity going on across the country. Motwang, for Plateau State, telling people that he's sorry. Plateau State, Benue State, these are places that produce food for us. And so if you look at the inflation numbers, you would always see that food inflation contributes a whole lot to, our climbing inflation. And part of the reason why you have that is this insecurity that keeps going around. So everything is sort of interconnected, from insecurity to the economic issues of inflation. And then you see this kind of Ponzi schemes, they thrive in a place of economic hardship. They thrive in a place of financial illiteracy. And that's basically where we are in Nigeria.
The other interesting stories on the daily is the story of the 300 million being demanded
between the MBA and, they'll sort that out. I mean,
do you think this is a witch hunt? I mean, why is he demanding? Is he well within his right and capacity to demand that a gift that was given to the MBA be returned? Don't forget, this was done under a government that was, let me support.
Well, I mean,
it wasn't a hosting bidding.
The NBA put out a very strong statement when what happened in River State happened in River State. So, I think I'll leave it at that. This was just a strong statement. The NBA chairman was kind of like all over media talking about how wrong this was. So he probably grated on some nerves doing that.
Okay, and now some persons are saying that maybe because of the support that the River State government has shown to the NBA, which is why they were very vocal during the entire process,
but the NBA should be vocal in the first place. So it's not about the support, it's about what is right. This is what the NBA is supposed to stand for. So we have gotten so used to, institutions or unions, organizations like this, keeping quiet in dire times, that when they now decide to speak, it's like, oh, your own is too much, why are you talking?
Something has happened.
Something has happened. There's somebody that is incentivizing you. I'm not saying that that's not the case, because we do not know the true story. There's a lot that probably happened behind the scenes. But the NBA should have been speaking, because this was a legal issue and it required the NBA as a trusted body in that area to put out statements that the public can trust.
Do you think the administrator of the River State right now, do you think he's even listening to the to the legal system. Because don't forget, during the local government, appointment and all of that, they did say, oh, no, you can't do this. You have to put a pause to it. But he went ahead and he did it. So it's almost like whatever the president has told him, he's standing, he doesn't care about anybody else. It's just basically about what he thinks he should do.
Exactly.
Is he even supposed to appoint local government heads?
I mean, court said don't appoint them, and he went ahead and did it. And then the one that is even more jarring, it's not even the appointment of the local government heads for me, is the fact that he now has access to treasury to spend money that was not appropriated for. One of the reasons why Fubara got into trouble was because the court said that he could not spend money that wasn't appropriated for by the state assembly.
Now he's doing that.
But the interesting thing now is that, the sole administrator, he could just go ahead and do it. He didn't need any appropriation. So what is happening in River State, it will be a case study for political scientists later, because we have some sort of military martial law going on in a democratic society. I mean, it's the paradox is jarring. I don't know how we're doing this, but we are. And
well, we are doing
and then the other issue is that if this can happen in River State, which other states cannot be caught up in this as well? And of course, that's why you see the PDP governors, scrambling and saying we support Fubara, I'm like, well, it's coming like a little too late. It took a while for you to get your act together. And I don't even know if it matters, because whether it's the court speaking or the NBA speaking, nobody's listening.
No, that brother is not listening. He's not listening.
He's not.
And the thing is, if he's not listening and the president is not calling to order to say, okay, this is not why I sent you there, why exactly was he even sent there? Because if you look at the press put out, the what's it called now, the address put out by the president on that day, it sounded more like go into the world and dominate, like the instruction that God gave to man. That was, I mean, I start to be corrected, please, if they tell me.
I mean, the president was to bring peace to River State. So the question now is the peace now in River State? And like you rightfully asked, what exactly did the president send him there to do? The way he said, is it really following the playbook of the president? We would never know, because we're never in their private meetings. The president said this was for peace. So the question is
there
peace?
Is there really peace?
Is peace there right now, or do we have an authoritarian in a democratic, society, just putting down his word, and his word is law? There is no checks, there's no balances, and people went to the polls, elected their governor, elected their representatives,
And you took the person out,
and you decided that the people's will doesn't count. That's absurd.
It's really crazy. Let's see how it goes. The most bizarre thing is when he says, return the 300 million or you face legal action. Who is the legal action? Who are they going to stand before? Are they going to stand before another authoritarian group of people, or are they going to stand in front of their fellow legal men and women?
What is very funny is this person that's saying you'll face the law is like, but the law told you not to appoint
exactly
people, and you flouted it. So we pick and choose, when we obey the law in Nigeria.
Just like what most
you
Christians
are somebody
do.
who violates the law on a regular basis. You're not supposed to spend money that's not be appropriated. You're not supposed to appoint sole administrators for local government. You went ahead to do that, and there's something that was giving us a gift, so you're not saying return it or you face the law. Which law? The one that you do not follow?
I'll leave that question for him to answer. Let's look at some other papers and see what the papers are saying. Let's see if we have some more interesting stories right there. Okay, Peak newspaper. No candidate will sit for UTME outside stage of registration. This is coming from the JAM. And Ondo, Aitadua calls for systems to empower youth. And the UK government invests $6 million in infra credit to boost Nigeria's energy transition infrastructure. Rivers administrator threatens NBA with lawsuit over 300 million naira payment. On insecurity, PDP urges Tinubu to declare state of emergency in Ondo. Ondo state is picking up and coming from this whole a security problem. Food prices push inflation to 24.23% in March, says the MBS. I'm sure you've seen something that caught your attention. Which of them?
Well, let's talk about the insecurity first and the PDP calling for sort of emergency in Ondo State. So everybody's kind of like doing a tit for tat thing now. Like, well, if we can call for sort of emergency in River State, maybe it's time to do that in Ondo State as well. And it's interesting because Ondo State is an APC state. So this is all politics. Like, well, you declared a state of emergency in a PDP state. Can you now declare one in Ondo State as well? Because there are things happening where insecurity is concerned. Why wouldn't you declare a state of emergency? I mean, if you look at state of emergency declaration in River State, where the president said it's about peace, you look at what's happening in Plateau State, and you've had so much killings in recent times. You look at what's happening in Benue State, where people are displaced. And there's been no talk of a state of emergency, But River State,
is that asking, does the president even like peace?
So now the PDP is saying, well, Ondo State is also facing trouble. Can you declare a state of emergency? Unfortunately, those powers only lie with the president. And, he can declare it at his discretion. So there's nothing anybody can say.
And so his discretion right now says there's peace in Ondo State. There's peace in Plateau. There's peace in Benue.
Maybe they haven't brought him up to speed.
It's not... Oh, don't get me started with he's not aware. I mean, we know who has that reputation. He can't collect the baton at all. He can't do that. He's not allowed to do that. I am rightly informed that the president is always briefed about every single daily activity that goes on in this country. So, like you said, he has the discretion to act on which he wants to act on. I
mean, but here's the thing, let's not get it twisted. The state of emergency declaration should not be used willy-nilly, So the fact that it was used in River State and everything that is not right, and now you have governors calling for it to be used in Ondo State, saying that, well, it happened in a PDP state, so it should happen in an APC state as well. It doesn't make it right, because we're just all going to, like Kenneth Ogungo would say, anarchy looms. You can't do that in every state. Because what it also now does is that it rubbishes the idea of a democracy. So even though, yes, you can ask the question on a moral grounds that why are you calling a state of emergency in River State, you can call it anywhere else, and we're considering security, you also want to keep it in mind that this is not something that should be done willy-nilly all over the country, in a country that claims to practice democracy and has an election after every 4 years. Should not be advocating for, elected representatives or elected governors to be taking off, their positions just because you want a tit-for-tat situation. We should be looking for how to resolve what's going on in River State, actually.
Okay, I'm sure you saw something on the inflation. I wanted to save that for 9, but I'm sure you want to touch a bit on that. I mean, it just means that if I had 1,000 naira, technically what I have is 400 naira.
See, I think one of the things, at some point I told myself, I need to stop watching the numbers for inflation, because every time I do, I wonder exactly if there is thoughts where, the CBN or the Minister of Finance and Coordinator of the Economy is concerned, where inflation is. The CBN will tell us that the reason why they have been, raising interest rates is because of inflation. One of the reasons is to curb inflation. But inflation keeps going up. Even after rebasing it, it's still going up. And, what is interesting is not seeing that sort of emergency placed on the economy. Looking at the Minister of Finance, how many times has he come out to tell us about what he thinks about this inflation, how to fix it, how to tackle it?
Does he even have an idea of how to fix it?
I mean, that's why he's there, right? He's there to make sure that the fiscal policies that support the monetary policies to help curb inflation. The CBN, CBN is always talking. I would give it to Yemi Cardoso. I mean, he has been very active. He has been very, when you talk about the stabilization of our currency, even though, yeah, he is. I mean,
doing nothing.
He has. I mean, the truth of the matter is that we have a very traditional CBN governor this time around who's saying we will go by the playbook of monetary policies. We're not going to do anything else outside of that. And he has helped in stabilizing currency. Yes, he devalued it because they're telling us this is the actual price. Nobody really knows. But he has been stable. Where this is concerned. And one of the things that they always release during the MPC meeting, which another one, by the way, is happening in May, is to tell us that, see, this is why we're raising interest rate. This is why we're doing this. but the fiscal body also has to support so that our monetary policies can work. So no matter, there's only so much that the CBN policies can do, because our inflation is not necessarily, you know, the regular inflation that's happening everywhere else. It is a cost push inflation. It's a supply driven inflation. So if you do not fix the supply issue, you're always going to have inflation go up. And that, most of that part also goes to the fiscal authorities. And a part of it is tackling food inflation, and that also goes back to insecurity, where farmers cannot go to the farms because of insecurity, and so you cannot produce enough food. There's infrastructure deficit, so they cannot transport the food. There's a whole lot going on, and most of it, like I said, is hinged on what the fiscal authorities are saying, and they hardly say anything. I mean, Mr. Wale Adu, I mean,
I rarely hear him speak.
Yes, I mean, he's a very qualified, you know, person where this is concerned, if you look at his qualifications and his antecedents. But coming to dealing with the Nigerian economy,
maybe
we're still waiting, right? It's almost 2 years in, and we're still waiting for exactly what the fiscal body, you know, which he coordinates, is doing, because he's also the coordinator of the economy.
I want to steal from the lines of our great woman, Madam Okonjo. But I said Nigeria's economic system is very dynamic, and so yes, Wale Adu, very qualified, very fit, but is he fit enough to handle a dynamic system as ours?
I mean, it's interesting because you mentioned Madam Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, because she was the first person that got that coordinating minister of the economy. And that's what Wale Adu also has. And I keep waiting for him to coordinate the economy. Like, can you do this? Or, I mean, I'm not saying he's not doing anything, but it is really hard to see the progress, and when people cannot feel it. Because if you're rebasing the inflation figures, does not mean that people will go to the market today and the prices will drop. But what we are seeing is that that's not happening. So you can rebase all you want and bring down the figures, but it doesn't change the fact that inflation is rising. And that is something that the fiscal authorities need to sit up and do. But we'll also look at what the CBN is going to do now during the MPC meeting for next month. I can't wait for that, because I want to see if they will keep raising interest, because they held the interest rate the last time, which I predicted. I was very right about that they were going to hold.
Did you bet?
Well, I'm not a gambler, you know, but maybe if I had, I would have made money. But I predicted that it was going to hold. They were not going to raise it. I actually, you know, had a bet with somebody. I said, they're not going to hold it. He said, no, I said, they're going to hold it. So let's see if now they'll start to bring it down. Now the inflation is still going up, or whether they'll take it up. And if they take it up again, what it means that also is that, you know, for Nigerian businesses, they cannot access credits because nobody's giving you credit for less than 30%. And so how are you going to thrive? Where do you even start to calculate your profits?
No need to even
And that's why we have a lot of businesses shutting down. So all of this, like you said, it's a very dynamic economic environment.
The NLC, I think the NLC was saying that they might have to revisit the minimum wage, looking at the fact that even the amount that they, you know, clamored for, it's almost technically useless. I mean,
don't get me started on the NLC.
Right now you owe 50,000 and you don't even know. By the time you pick this.
Don't get me started on the. Don't get me started on the NLC. The NLC. There are words I can't use in national TV. So, but the NLC, they always fight losing battles. It's almost like they do not think through things before they start to talk. So the NLC has restricted, you know, itself to just speaking about minimum wage all the time, you know. And it was interesting the last time that they fought for the 75,000 and said, well, the reason why we're settling for that, you know, the 70,000 is that, you know, they will not raise fuel prices. And right after that happened, smack, the fuel price was raised to about 1,000. So now you come after the fact and you tell us, oh, we're going to fight for the minimum wage again. And I'm like, this is old.
Do you think that the NLC are the only people who are oblivious to what is really happening? Because then when you even right here, we spoke about it last year, if you watch many analysts, they're saying, okay, by the time you fight for this amount, trust me, things are going to go higher. how is it that you are the only ones not realizing that when your earning power goes up, your purchasing power would also, I mean, purchasing, this would also, there's a way to put it in the economic terms. You know, when your income goes up, definitely, it's not like a rich man now. When you,
See,
that's
I
just how
think
it works.
the NLC, the NLC is a body, right? That's supposed to be Nigerian labor, right? So they have other unions inside of the NLC. They have experts, they have people who understand these things.
So what's
But they
happening?
have restricted themselves to being a one-trick pony. So all they talk about is this. And the truth about the minimum wage at the time was that, you know, if the NLC had actually consulted with the experts that they had in the body to realize that inflation was on an upward trend and there was nothing to show it was going to come down. And then you had the narrative valuation as well. So if you look at this and you decide that you want to do this, you want to fight for 70,000, look at the economic indices, the macroeconomic indices. Let's look at the currency. Let's look at inflation. That is how you know exactly if this money is going to be worth anything tomorrow. And then look at the fuel prices as well. So the NLC did not take any of this into consideration. So now getting up to tell us we want to fight for another minimum wage. When, by the way, if you look at our budget and you look at the cost of crude in the market right now, I think it's under $70. And our budget said it was supposed to be $75 a barrel, producing 2 million barrels a day. We are not producing 2 million barrels a day. It's less than $70 a barrel because of this Trump tariff situation. So we can't even fund our budget. And that budget is what's supposed to take care of the 70,000 that was raised for the minimum wage. And now you are, as you say, you want to raise more. Where's money going to come from? The president is not even going to listen to you. It doesn't make any sense. The NLC needs to sit down with its experts in all of the other unions and call them and talk to them and say, what should we do? Do not be a one-trick pony all the time. Any little thing, want to raise minimum wage, come on. And it gets old.
Midnight meetings, disturbing Nigerians.
It gets very,
bringing
very
them out
old.
to come and protest. And
that's why nobody listens anymore. Like, oh, come on, please.
Let's see if we could take one more paper before we wrap up the paper headlines this beautiful morning. I know that there are a lot of things that we want to check out. Okay. All right. The Punch newspaper is saying that Interpol joins EFCC in a 1.3 trillion CBEX probe, and the EFCC cracks down on other Ponzi schemes. Police shot CBEX office, victims recount losses. That's all you're left with now, recounting. Tinubu inherited economy on life support. Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please.
You see this thing that you know the APC does. When the former president Muhammadu Buhari took over, he kept telling us about the 16 wasted years of the PDP, you know, and that blame game went on for 8 years. And it's interesting that, you know, the president right now, you know, is also from the APC, and he supported most of the economic policies of the former APC government. But you're telling us he inherited an economy on life support. Why did he support the economic policies at the time and actually said that they were okay, even when the former president at the time was, you know, getting this ways and means from the CBN and borrowing so much from CBN? The president at the time said, yes, just get CBN to print more money. So it's okay. That's what the current president said at the time. So you supported all those economic policies. You supported that government. Then you came in. This government is also your party. Now you're telling us you inherited an economy on life support. Didn't you realize that? Because what you have done is that from the time that you took over up until now, all the reforms that you said that you have put in place are reforms that have made life difficult for the people. You remove fuel subsidies, fuel prices went up. You removed the electricity subsidies, the price went up. You decided to devalue the currency. Yeah, these reforms are things that, well, whether the World Bank or the IMF will tell you they were supposed to be done, but they were supposed to be done like this. The IMF had said at a point that they expected it to be staggered. They said do it, but not do it exactly like this. And so you cannot blame us for doing this, for what your economy is saying right now, because you did not obey us in total. So now coming to tell us that the economy was on life support. You were part of the APC, you know, you were part of the APC leadership, and you supported the government at the time with all the economic policies. You cannot cry about it right now. It's 2 years in. We need you to fix it.
Like I always like to say that talking about issues relating to Nigeria is like going back to a horrible dream. and nobody likes to do that. But unfortunately, we're stuck with it. We just have to keep updating you on the big stories. We just have to keep talking until the right things are done. And this is where we wrap it up on the paper headlines this beautiful morning. Do not forget that at about 9 o'clock, hopefully, we'll be having a conversation with our guests. And of course, we're talking about the recurring Ponzi scheme tragedy in Nigeria, how Nigerians keep falling into this trap every single time. And then we'll touch on the inflation and see how Nigerians can survive in this very trying time, because my heart goes out to all of us, including myself. I give myself my heart. And, so 8 o'clock is time for sport, 8:30 Eastern Circle, and I will see you at about 9.